Now I'd like to give floor to Dace Landmane. And Simona already mentioned such a term which you might be familiar with, but 3 years ago I had no idea which is an HID protocol, but Dace and NICHD. And Dace is the one to explain, introduce it all, and there are books, handouts you have all received. Dace, now I give floor to you because you are going to tell us more about that. Yes, hello everyone, dear guests and the specialists who are present. So first of all, thank you very much for invitation to tell what has been an opportunity for me and our team to introduce the NICHD protocol. And I will now tell about the journey. But before I move on to NICHD protocol, I have to say also express great gratitude to Madame Ilze Bērziņa. Thank you for addressing me. Thank you for, well, we had, and during this time when we introduced the protocol and our team, Ilze was always there. We could reach out to her. And thanks to Ilze, also this work ended up in a format of a book. And she said, well, it can't just be a leaflet or something, or some Word documents. We needed a book, so thank you for that. And why was it a challenge and a great pleasure when we were asked to work in the field of NICHD protocol? Because I was glad to have contributed with my experience and knowledge. And this is the interrogation or interview of the minors, which is, and I have also experienced lots of years of experience of work in the police, and I do work with especially protected victims that are several hundreds of children. So during the 17 years I've worked in the police, it is really thousands of children I had to talk to about very, very difficult topics. And upon performance of the work in this field, I also, of course, thought about how to make this proceedings in the best interests of a child, and how we could also gain information to contribute to the trial proceedings. And this is how we got to the NICHD proceedings protocol. And more on what we did. We had time 5 months. But what we did is we evaluated the practice on the interview of the minors and the practice of it in Latvia. And again, thank you to Ilze. And we did also introduce experience of experts, judges, psychologists, police officers, and we obtained 220 responses from the specialists, and this also is in one of the books included, which are handed out to you. And policymakers, I do encourage you to have a look in what the specialists of law enforcement speak about and what can be improved in Latvia. During the time that was given to us, of course, we had a theoretical and scientific report and analysis of NICHD, and we needed to see if for our cultural environment and legal environment, this protocol is suitable. And in the book, you will find a very detailed description of what kind of cultural aspects need to be taken into consideration, and also procedurally what has to be considered to introduce this. And of course, we worked on this NICHD, and we did took into consideration all the scientific, all the science behind, and also regarding the linguistics and wordings, and because it also says and it is formulated what and how it has to be done. And thanks to also my team, because without my team, without this team, I couldn't have reached this successful result. And in scientific and in academic work, one author on the publication is never enough. Actually, there has to be more publications or more references to publications of other researchers, and this is why this was a doctor of psychology, Evija Strika, who for more than 25 years works in forensic field in Latvia and psychologically evaluates children involved in the proceedings, and she is also a docent in the University of Latvia. Then we had psychologist Dace, who also works in forensic for more than 20 years and prepares new psychologists. And thank you, Valentina, who agreed to participate in our activities. And for 18 years, she already investigates sexual crime against minors, and especially serious crime. And she also contributed in this material. So thank you for this team, for my team. And Valentine is also present here. But the experts are in expertises. They continue their work. They conduct their work. But more about the protocol. So I am the person who evaluates already finished result or some kind of formalized experience. And we were not the first to translate this NICHD principles. There were already some. There had already been such some kind of a work done, and for their internal use in state police, the psychologists did translate the NICHD protocol. And as you can see, if there's not funding, you can't actually introduce it for larger masses and people. But I have to mention also Dace, the center. They had resources and they did translate it better, and they could share this knowledge with other specialists and experts. And then in 2014, as much as I found, then this protocol then was prepared. And when we made a decision which protocol to adopt within the project, I think there was no competition. We had to go forward with the reviewed version in Latvian, and this is what we now present to you, and it was adopted. And this is why now we have two versions. One is for Center Dace, and the other one now within the Bērna program, we have our own. About the protocol itself, in the world practice, it is very well known. There are scientific research that show the efficiency, and the researchers also move forward. They have implemented the improvements for reviewed versions, but these are really very good materials that can be used in the work of specialists every day. What we found is that there is no separate version, for example, for preschool children or adolescents. There is one version, and that is why the interviewer who acts in accordance with this model, he or she has to adopt to the age of a child themselves. And then there are also attachments and annexes which can be then used in accordance with the situation, the particular situation. We have also adopted this, and you can find this in a book. This helps in everyday work of the specialists who conduct interviews of small children. And the most important, what is present in this protocol, and for us to understand when the specialist is interviewing in accordance with this protocol, is that the investigator would always ask questions. Always just ask questions, but not promote them telling the story on their own. Because as we know that this is a different probability level we can then experience. And so an ICHD protocol definitely does talk about the credibility, and we have a minimum divergence from the truth if we do follow and comply with the protocol recommendations. Also, and it is told in the recommendations, it is important to establish the contact with a child to create the feeling of security, and only then talk about some experiences. If such contact is not established and there is no sense of security, then why should a child tell about one of the most serious events in their lives? And so that is why this protocol explicitly talks about and comprehensively about how to establish this contact. From practice, I have to say that this is a very good time to evaluate the minor, the psychological characteristics, emotions, and also to adopt during the interview. The protocol itself also consists of 7 parts, which, when going through, the necessary information is obtained about the circumstances that are of interest to investigators. And as I mentioned, those using it is important, and here in Latvia, for them it will be interesting to see our recommendations from legal standpoint and also from psychological point of view in adoption of the method. We do make a conclusion that it is suitable for Latvian circumstances in culture and also for our investigation. But looking in the recommendation, we encourage to look in the recommendations we have formulated. And also, this method must be used very dynamically. If the questions are asked and the answers are received, it is actually not promoting a conversation. For a person who uses this method, they need to be a high level professional. They need knowledge on child psychology, also children with special needs. And one more thing is that they have to have some kind of information already or understanding of the proceedings of the events they're talking about with a child. And so the things we have then we have highlighted and what the expert must know and be aware of in the proceedings. One more thing, criminal procedure regulations need to be complied with, definitely, because if there are procedural violations, then accordingly this actually spoils all the work and this good conversation could not be taken into consideration or its credibility would not be present. And so we also conclude that we need practical training, really very good practical training to people, to professionals in the field, for them to know how to establish a contact and how to ask the specific questions. Also very important is, and within the scope of this knowledge about the psychology of children, also about the situation awareness, and also, once again, what is in the law and what there has to be present in interrogating, in interviewing the minors. We need to consider that we are recommending this protocol not to be used by specialists of other fields because this is specifically for proceedings and specifically for proceedings in child abuse and crimes against minors. It's not for specialists who want to, for example, assess the health condition of a child. It is not for such kind of use. And then about the books themselves, which you have in your bags or in your hands. The small book has NICHD interview and interview protocol guidelines in investigation. There is a method of drawing. There are various other situations when additional interview is necessary, how to maybe have, and we're talking about various techniques, how to use them, and also inappropriate information which cannot be or the context cannot be used within the context of conversation with minors. And then there is the second book, but we had to prepare one book, but actually I said no, we need to have the scientific basis. We need to give specialists the arguments why we are using it and why it is useful for pre-trial investigation and conversation with children. In this book, you will find also a scientific basis, empirical conclusions, and what is very important is that what we did actually we tested it ourselves as how to speak to children and children with special needs. It is autism and other special needs. You will also find how to use this method with special cases. And in investigation, as I said, what works, it does, and what works in the Latvian cultural environment and what does not. And also in the work and investigation, what could be suitable and what could not. So I encourage you to familiarize with the research. There are great conclusions, and we have attorneys also contributed to creation of this material. There are police officers, judges, prosecutors, and psychologists who do interview the minors in Latvia, and they provide answers. And there are very interesting contributions and conclusions. And what else did I say to Ilse is that we are not going to finish our work with these two books. Definitely, we need to send our work to homepage of NICHD, and we need to publish this work and make it available to everyone. We are very, very happy to see that this is already available. Whomever opens the homepage and in the refreshed protocol, it is usable, available. I checked it yesterday. So I encourage you once again, meaning that if you do not have the book with you, maybe you listen to us online, you can even now download it from the homepage. What I think that the work is never ending, it develops, the practice develops, and there are cultural aspects that do change. And we would be very happy to continue the work. And I think that it is also important and also necessary. We have great specialists in Latvia. We could actually create our own protocol, which is specifically suitable only for us, of course, based on the NICHD protocol, which in itself is unique. We definitely think that we need to be thinking about the various methodological material or media in use of media in also interview of the minors, and then we can make sure of the scientific basis for that, or maybe the drawings, or maybe if the specialists don't know why is it important, and maybe there are also methods with dolls and currently not recommended from the scientific point of view. But I encourage to discuss these all questions, issues, and just to have the final word on whether they are advisable or not currently in the work. So I really hope that we are going to continue our work and develop the field in Latvia. Thank you, Bērna. Thank you for having started this journey on a completely different level. And these processes are going to improve the quality of our work here in Latvia. Thank you very much for your attention. And I hope that our materials are going to be useful to you.
Paldies, Dacei. Es ceru, ka arī klātesošajiem, kuri dzirdējuši šo
Dace. I hope that all who heard it now, this NHCHD, and we will use these materials, we will recommend them to our colleagues, friends, that it's available both in internet and also as a printed book, and in contact with different institutions, you will know whom to share with the printed versions.